Hello, welcome back to Emerge, the health podcast for busy, high performing women. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swenson Ridley. Today, I wanted to dive into a conversation that we started a little bit in the group part of my program that I run. We have a group call every Friday. And what I had everyone do was actually sit down and think about and journal. You can do this too as you're listening to this, but journal around what movies or magazines or books that you were exposed to as a kid, your favorite 3 movies if you were a movie watcher, even songs, music that you listen to, what it taught you about body image and health and what that means. And we had this really interesting conversation around this on Friday and just, where some of our beliefs come from around what health really is. Because so many of us tend to think about and define health and think that it's if you look good and feel good then you must be healthy, and the reality is that's not entirely the case, and it's really not how health works, and there can be a lot of other things and pieces to that pie. And so I wanted to start this off by just having you think about what is health to you, like how do you define what being healthy is? What does healthy version of you look like? This is another conversation I've been having with one of my clients because she's very adamant about not wanting to go down the road she's watched her aunts and her sister and her mom go down of, the yo-yos of weight loss and always on some diet and, having to work so hard and do just have it be so consuming to be healthy. And that health is completely driven by what they see on the outside and not what's on the inside. And so on the flip side, I'd say it's been holding her back. It's been one of her limiting factors is because she's like doing the opposite of what they're doing, right? And so she's hit this point where she's not healthy, but she also doesn't know what healthy her looks like. And I have a feeling she's not the only one, and that many of you who listen to the show might be in that position. So I challenge you to think about that. And then I wanted to share, in looking at this and in thinking about this, how I define health and what it is that I actually do, because I've been asked this a few times recently, and also been on my own journey of, as I've been completing my PhD. I'm going to start writing my dissertation next week from when I'm recording this, which is super exciting. But and thinking about it, it's I'm in this world of women's health and hormones, and I approach it in a completely different way, where we're not just dealing with symptoms. I really go deep into what is going on and how do we heal from that. And it's not just in the physical realm either. And so I want to, there's so much that goes on in our emotional health and stuff I've been experiencing recently that we have to work through and release in order to actually truly heal. Like we're talking about true, actual healing. So I want to go over with you the 5 pillars that I use of health and what all needs to be working like it should be for you to really truly be healthy, and also explain some of the emotional components that go into that, because I find all of this really fascinating and very interesting. And this might turn into more of a series because I'm going to do like a cursory overview um, of what each of them are, but there's quite a bit more depth that we can go into on each one. So let's talk about this. When I think about being healthy and what health is and what it looks like and all of that, I look at, like I said, 5 pillars. What those are, in no particular order, are elimination, so our body's ability to get rid of stuff; assimilation, which is our body's ability to intake stuff and utilize the things we eat, etc.; immunity, which is our immune function. We're going to talk about all these in a little more depth here. And then oxidation, which is our ability to deal with free radicals, which are things that we're exposed to all the time and can lead to wreak havoc on our bodies. And then the last piece is where I feel like we focus most of our time, but it's actually only one piece of the pie, and that is regeneration. And so regeneration is the what you eat. It's your spiritual health, it's relaxation, it's brain and behavior transformation, it's all that. And even I, in my work, have focused probably too heavily in that area and not necessarily enough in making sure all of the areas are functioning and working well. So let's kind of take this and not really flip it on its head, because all of these things are connected, but talk through how do you really truly become healthy and have your body functioning right. And in my world, health isn't tied to a number on the scale or any of that stuff. It's tied to how much energy do you have, how well is your bowel movements working. Like that's a huge indicator on elimination and assimilation. it can be about what you eat and all that, but it's like, how well is your body functioning in the world to keep you healthy and living long and doing the things you want to do and being able to hike and play with your kids and your grandkids and travel. And, these are all the things that I hear from my clients that they're like, this is the dream. Start the business, change the career, I've had women who want to start, huge nonprofit organizations and just so much awesome goodness in the world. And their bodies are not where they need them to be feel like they can do those things. And so what I do is help us get there, right? And it's not about like follow this diet or, do this exercise program or any of those things. It's about making sure all of this, your whole system of elimination, assimilation, immunity, your immune function, oxidation, and regeneration is actually functioning. So what does that look like? I actually always start at the elimination level, and that is peeing and pooping, just to, put it simply. But, we have organs that are associated with each of these things. And so the organs that are responsible for helping your body eliminate correctly and get rid of toxins and get rid of, like, we poop to poop out the stuff we don't need, right? And so those things are your liver, your gallbladder, your large intestine, your skin, your lymph, your bowel movements are a huge indicator of how that is functioning, and your hydration levels. So if we dive into this, I'm going to ask you some questions, and these are some things to think about. Like, ready? Here's a little pretest. How well is my elimination working? Do you have at least 2 to 3 normal bowel movements a day? Normal means that they are soft, well formed. You feel like you've gone completely, and you're not constipated, and you're not having diarrhea. So the stools aren't loose. They're not super hard. They're not like little rabbit pellets. They're easy to pass. All of those things. That's number one. To just answer the question, you can give it, I don't know, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. Maybe I'll actually create this thing and add this with this. But for now, you just do it in your head. Number 2 is, are you drinking at least half your body weight in ounces of water? Like 99% of the women I talk to are not even close to this. I had a conversation with someone recently, and she's probably close to 200 pounds. We'll just say that. But she's like, I really only drink about 30 ounces of water a day. And I was like, okay, let's start there. We have to be hydrated in order to have things move and pass through our body and toxins to get out, and our kidneys and other things are helping to filter all this, but we need all that working. So those are the 2 questions you can ask yourself there. The third, I'm going to give you 3 for each one of these pillars. The third question to ask yourself is, how is your ability to forgive? Are you harboring or holding on to grief, resentment, anger, um, bitterness, like any of these emotions? And I want to share a story here really quickly, because I do a lot of work in clearing out our gut, right? Like that, this is part of my foundational healing protocol. But it goes beyond the physical, right? Because what I find happens, and this just happened recently. I've shared one client's story quite a bit on the show, but I had a coaching call with one of my clients last week, and we were kind of getting ready to wrap up, and she paused for a minute, and I was like, what's going on? And she's like, well, I don't know if you want to talk about this, because it's kind of weird, but like, here's the thing. And so what she shared with me was, she has an ex-husband. They've been divorced for 5 years, and he still comes around all the time and ends up, like, I think they should still share dogs or something. And so he's in her life, and she's been going through this process of, changing how she's eating. She's finally been releasing some weight, and we're doing quite a bit of work on her liver in particular, and gallbladder, and the elimination process in her body. And she was like, he was around this last week, and she's like, I felt so angry, and I didn't lose any weight, and literally nothing else changed except that I was frustrated and angry because he was there, and I don't have good boundaries with him. And I was like, huh, isn't that interesting? And so she finally got this window into how much her emotional state was impacting the rest of her organs and her body's function. And so this is where I really start to come in and take healing to another level. This is where we start talking about quantum science and physics and theory. It's all science is theory until someone proves it wrong. Um, but taking this to another level and really truly being able to start working through this stuff, so all of these systems function like they're supposed to. And so, and I've also found a lot of women are either the emotions are buried and they don't want to deal with them, or, if you've got a history of traumatic things, whether sexual or emotional, if you've got a history of feeling unsafe in your environment, like all of that is going to actually impact your body's ability to eliminate correctly. So it's not just about like, let's make you poop more, take some magnesium, not at all. Like we don't even do that at all. That's not what I do. It's about starting to release some of the stuff, both physically and mentally and emotionally. So I just wanted to share that. That kind of culminates that. So we had elimination, liver, gallbladder, large intestine, skin, lymph. So, if you've got symptoms in any of these areas, either, you're going to have an issue there. And so it becomes about how do we deal with that? It's not just about changing your diet or, avoiding this or avoiding that. There's a lot deeper work that needs to happen and be done there. That's number one. Second pillar, assimilation. Similar, it's using some of the same organs and whatnot, but elimination is where we get rid of all the stuff we don't need. Assimilation is where we actually take up the stuff that we do need from what we're eating. And our emotions, again, will impact this in a big way. So the organs that are dealing with assimilation are your small intestine, your stomach, your heart, the pH of your body, your pancreas, and things that are going to interfere with that are if your digestion's off and you have poor concentration, because those two things are going to be connected. And the emotions that go with that are being nurtured and feeling like you're contributing. And I know for so many women, we are lacking in both of these areas because we're so overwhelmed, so stressed, running thin, or we've been, we give all the nurturing, but we don't ever receive. And that's actually tying into the next pillar, which is immunity as well. But, we probably want to be nurtured on some level, but we either don't allow it or we don't take time for it, or we, just keep going. And then contribution, like we have areas we contribute. And I would argue many of us, especially those listening to the show, if you're busy, driven, high performing, you have a contribution that you want to give to the world, and maybe it's not aligned with whatever's going on. But in any case, those are, some of the things to ask yourself is more, I would say, like, A, how's your digestion? Like, are you getting heartburn? Are you getting, do you feel nauseous after you've eaten certain things? All of the kind of symptoms of just poor digestion, I think we all know what those are, can be a sign that you're not assimilating things correctly, meaning you're not absorbing what you're eating and putting into your body, whether it's good or bad. And so you're going to have problems and things aren't going to be going well. And some of that is going to come from being loving to yourself, having grace for yourself, not being judgmental. A lot of the things that can impact this is like a lack of self-worth, to be honest. And quite a few women that I work with, myself included, we all have and can deal with this conversation around self-worth and it being something we don't want to address or acknowledge. But until we can start to nurture ourselves as well as everyone else, then we can really struggle and not be as healthy as we could be, and be struggling with and dealing with, if you're having issues in any of these areas, you're going to have hormone imbalances. Your insulin is going to be off. Your A1C might be high. Your cholesterol is going to be off. You're going to have menopause symptoms. You're going to have trouble losing weight. Like all of these are things that happen when these areas of health, these pillars are not working correctly. So that was number 2. Number 3 is our immune system, immunity. And this has to do with, all of our immune systems regulated by all kinds of things, including our gut flora and bacteria. So I go in this order because first we need to be able to getting rid of the junk. Then we need to be able to absorb the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff. Then we need all that system to be working so that our immune system functions right and our hormones function right and our mental health is good and our energy is good. And a lot of that is actually tied to our ability to give and receive. It's also where we find our self-expression and are clear on who we are and identify self from not self. And so a lot of things I see with this is like around the thyroid. And I have heavily gravitated towards, we'll just put it this way. And I talked about this on the last solo show a little bit, the different energy centers of our body. And so we have 7 that are like physically in our body, and then 8 is our connection to God above us. And I don't want to, scare anyone off talking about this, but I've been doing a lot of work, like moving energy through my centers. And I started off having an issue in my second center, which is tied to elimination and liver, gallbladder, all that kind of stuff. and, was able to release that. My bowel movements have become more regular ever since then and actually normal. Um, and I started doing some more advanced work, and I would get to my fifth center, which is where the thyroid sits. And I was doing this meditation the other day, and it was just like, I had all this energy building up from my root all the way up, and then it was like, nope, we're not, nope, just like nothing's there. We're dead. We're not alive. We're like, your brain is cut off from your body. And I was like, what in the world? And I got really clear on, I had been trained as a kid, just given how I grew up. And if my mom listens to this, sorry, mom, but, I was taught that my emotions didn't matter. And so I learned that it wasn't safe to express myself. And I have literally been limiting my self expression my entire life and my feelings, and not in touch with my feelings at all, because it just wasn't safe. There was no time and place for how I felt. It was always not the right time. And if it wasn't convenient for my mom, or she couldn't handle it, like, we didn't do that. So I learned to hold all that in, and it created this block. And I'm actually going to get, blood work drawn and stuff tomorrow, just to check in and see where my body's at. But so much of that has to do with my immune function as well, because your heart and thymus are all connected here. And then if you're stuck at your thyroid, like, you're going to not things aren't going to work right. And I get sick all the time. And I, have had hormone imbalances and issues, and then went estrogen dominant, like all this stuff. And I was like, oh, it makes so much sense, because, there's a block there. And so much of that was tied to emotional stuff. And I also had some anger and things I needed to work with, mostly directed at my mom. Again, sorry, mom. And it's like, we all have our experiences of life and other people, and create stories around it, right? And so a lot of this work is actually about getting past the stories and moving through all of that. But just something that an experience of my that I own, that I've seen, is how much we can be affected energetically by our emotions, which then ends up impacting our physical body and making things not work. So, our immune system is very much related to whether or not we've been heartbroken. Like, that will impact you. I haven't met a person yet with an autoimmune condition who hasn't experienced some major level of heartbreak in their lives. And how we move past that is we start to give love to ourselves and be willing to receive love ourselves. And so this is, where we start to tap into that. And so for those of you who are struggling with thyroid issues, or, autoimmune conditions, heart stuff, ask yourself, like, am I willing and open to, maybe you're giving and giving and giving, but you never allow yourself to receive, similar to what we talked to with nurturing and contribution. They're slightly different, but, or, we're giving and giving and giving, but out of a place of ego and not out of a place of just universal love, right? So we have to really be connected to ourselves, to the world, in a way that's dynamic, and we're giving and receiving in equal amounts. So if that's not you, and you are struggling with anxiety or depression, or your hormones are screwed up, or your immune system is terrible, these are all the areas that we start to address and look at and work through. Next, we have oxidation. This one's kind of quick and easy. Free radicals, I said, are, they're the things that we get exposed to in our environment that have a positive or negative charge to an extreme where it disrupts our cells. And so that's what can cause our cells to go haywire and ultimately lead to things like cancer. So we want to make sure that all of these systems are working right, and that our cellular integrity is good, and our mitochondria are producing energy, and all that stuff is happening, so that our body has the ability to deal with free radicals, because it is designed to do that. And when we have breakdowns in elimination, assimilation in our immune system, it can't. And so we want to, oxidation is really about making sure we're as healthy as possible, and also, giving ourselves the fatty acids and the nutrition that we need to make that environment as good as possible. And then the last, and with that, with that fourth pillar, if the other three that we've talked about aren't working as well, that one's probably going to be off as well. You can just assume that. So that's automatically something that comes in. And then the last thing is regeneration. And like I said, I think this is where we tend to put most of our focus. It's on things like nutrition, and more people, I would say, are working on spiritual health. Some women that I work with have tried to implement relaxation or rest, which is different than sleep. and I can explain that more on a different podcast. And then also looking at our brain and behavior transformation. And a lot of how I approach health and life and all of the things, it's not about willpower. It's not about, like I said, take this supplement or follow this diet or, do this thing. It's about starting to understand ourselves and the unconscious programming and patterning that's been running that has ultimately impacted our systems, so they're not working right. So our elimination's not working right, our assimilation's not working right, our immune system's not working right. We can't oxidize and get rid of free radicals. And it's about starting to rewire and bring things to the surface and then let it go. And like I said, as you work through this, and that's only one pillar. And so some people, it's very rare for me to find someone who on their own has been on this journey where they've addressed everything. Like there's always something missing, right? And we normalize symptoms. We say, oh, that's just the way it is, or oh, my family dealt with this, so I'm going to deal with it. Like all of that, starting to be blunt, is crap. We actually have the ability to help our bodies heal and recover. With if we're born with different chromosomes or something, there's going to be some limitation there. But any gene can be turned on or off by our lifestyle. My husband was just telling me that his work, he is in charge of an organization that handles health for Native communities in interior Alaska. And I guess they were just approached about starting to offer gene therapy, which I'm going to go on my soapbox here for just a minute. But it's silly expensive, right? Like insanely expensive. I think millions of dollars per treatment or something. But there's becoming this whole, like the more we've learned about genes and sequenced genomes and all this stuff, there's becoming more of this drive to do stuff like that. However, in my, humble opinion, whatever it is, for those who are willing, and I understand why it's there because not all of us are willing to do this. Like most of us live in this world of Western medicine where we want the pill and we want it to fix it and we want it now and we don't want to have to stop our lives and deal with it or do anything different, right? That is where the majority of the world lives. If you're listening to this show, I'm going to assume that's not you because that is not what I talk about. And, with gene therapy or doing anything with our genes, we have the ability to impact those just through lifestyle change. You don't need gene therapy. Like it is entirely possible to change how your body is expressing itself. And ultimately, we are energy expressed in the world as a solid form. This is getting into quantum physics here. And we have this connection to the world of infinite possibility that is God, is universal intelligence, is source, is whatever you want to call it. In my world, it's God. And I feel more connected to God than I ever have in all this work I've been doing just with getting in touch with my own body and then understanding and starting to feel and just being open to my connectedness with Him, right? We all have the capacity and the ability to tune into that. We just have to be willing to come at it in a different way. And, dealing with our health and looking at health and what it really is as these 5 things, like these are the essential things that we need in order to say, like, okay, my body is as strong as it could be. My body works the best that it possibly can. I am as healthy and, fit and energetic and all of those things that we all want. It's tied to so much more than your next diet or your next exercise program or, even therapy session. All of those are good things, but they're missing the cohesive thing that brings them all together. So I'm getting a little excited and passionate here about all this because I love this. And I share this from a place of in figuring out where my own energy was blocked and like this lack of self-expression I've had. I'm super soft-spoken and I often go hoarse. My husband talks about how he can't hear me. And that's just been my whole life, like, because I haven't talked. And it used to be the only way that I fully expressed myself or shared my opinions or thoughts was in writing because I had time to process them and like put them out the way I wanted them to. And since I've started podcasting, like I've definitely been opening up in that way. But even I've really been thinking about journaling through, like meditating on what is my purpose? Who am I? This is a big question in terms of this realm of self-expression. And I'm sharing this because I know so many women have thyroid issues and it's all related to this. But, and it's this scary thing of like when I realized all this stuff about how I've been and done my whole life and this unconscious things that have run to protect me, little 5-year-old me who just wanted love and attention from someone and didn't get it. It was both my mom and my dad. My dad, he's and I love both of my parents. I don't want anybody to think like I don't love my parents or anything. And they're great people and I love having them in my life. But, my dad tends to live in La La Land and not be very emotionally in depth. So, like, I didn't have any kind of nurturing emotional connection growing up. And so I created these things to get it. And coming on the other side of that and realizing all this stuff, this was last week, I just had this holy crap moment where I was like, I have no idea who I am. And I was like, that's super scary and totally awesome because now I get to create who I want to be. And so I've been really thinking about and working through, my all the things that have always I defined me, right? Being a chiropractor, being a soccer player, being a straight A student, like all this stuff that we tend to get our identity from, if you will. Like if I just let all that go and came literally from nothing and said, "Who am I?" That's what I've really been looking at. And inside of that, looking at what I do and how I serve the women that I work with and what I offer and what that is. And I'm really clear on it's not just functional medicine and it's not just coaching and it's not just, integrative medicine, even. It's a whole different animal. And so I'm still trying to like define it for myself, right? But I wanted to share as part of this, part of how I show up and make you think and do all that is like it's about bringing all these pieces together. And I'm super excited because I'm about to start my dissertation and really look at integrative health and medicine and defining health and all of that for women in the perimenopausal age around looking at these 5 pillars and addressing all of them, because without all of them we have issues and we never really get there. And when you bring it all together, it's like this crazy cool stuff starts to happen. I've had so much shift in the last probably since January of like I've always been really into nutrition and nutritional medicine. And I'm not saying that stuff isn't an important and it's not an important piece of the pie for a time in order to heal. However, we don't need to put the amount of effort and thinking and brain power into all of that as we tend to. And when we can just let go of everything, it stops being such a chore. And I got really clear on, I've always been an athlete and I haven't been really active the last few years because I've come up with excuses of being injured and whatever. And just without really thinking about it, without like being like, I'm going to train for something or any of that, I've been far more active in the last week because I have energy and I feel good. And it's just like, no, this is something I want to do. And I'm just doing it because I want to do it and not for anything or for anyone or because of some image or any of that. Like, I just want to feel strong and healthy. So I've been working out and it feels really good. I'm like, that's amazing. So my challenge to you in all of this and in sharing all of this, I don't ask anyone to do anything that I haven't done myself. And there's so much more to both what you're dealing with, your symptoms, how you're feeling, and how you're healing, and where you're wanting to get in your life that goes so far beyond all the things you've looked at this point. So if you're listening to this and you're like, holy crap, a lot of this makes sense, Dr. Alex, like, what do I do? Where do I go from here? 2 things. If we're not connected, just connect with me. I'm on Facebook. We've got the free Facebook group. It gives you all the stuff in the show notes. There's links and everything. You can also just email me. But if we are connected and you've been in my world for a while and we haven't actually taken a step towards working together, let's do it. I do, there's no strings attached to the first visitor. You're not signing up, signing your life away or any of that. And it's not a huge investment. I do a first initial visit for $57 and we do a deep dive into all of this stuff. We look at all 5 pillars. We do that through a toxicity and hormone assessment. We look at energetically and emotionally where you are and what things you've dealt with that might be contributing to all of this. We look at what your dream is and where you want to get and where you're starting from, and then I help you make a plan. So if you're listening to this and like you haven't taken the action step yet, go ahead and take that step. I will put a link in the show notes to actually just like schedule that. You don't even have to reach out to me. But if you want to reach out to me first, absolutely, please do. I love to talk with people before we come into that, just so we make sure we're on the same page. But if you listen to this podcast, you know me, you know where I'm coming from, and let's do it. I would love to take that next step with you because there's so much power. Like I just have been so present to when I wake up in the morning, it's like I feel this weird energy, and it's so weird to like have energy in the morning, right? And I finally identified it because I'm so out of touch with my emotions because I've never experienced them because I always told myself that it's not okay to feel anything. But it's like I'm excited at the beginning of the day. I'm like, "Oh, that's what that is." And that feels amazing. And I want that for other people. So if you're not in that place yet, let's connect, let's talk, let's take this to a whole different level from anywhere you've ever gone with your health. And with that, I will see you next week.